Assalamu alaikum and welcome again. Today we will talk about topic 1.3. It is talking about operating systems. You can find it in page 8. Now, what is the operating system? Software that enable computer systems to function and to allow users to communicate with computer systems. The general tasks for a typical operating system include what? Control of operation of the input, output, and backing storage devices. Also, supervising the loading, running, and storage of applications programs. Dealing with errors that occur in application programs. Maintaining security of the whole computer system. Maintaining a computer log which details the computer's usage. Also, allowing communication between the user and the computer system. It is the user interface. For me, I see this is one of the most important tasks of my operating system.
Although some computers are completely automated, most require interaction with a human being at some point. The study of human-computer interfaces is important, since there are many ways in which a computer and a human being can communicate with each other. Each approach has advantages and disadvantages when compared to others.
In terms of what appears on the screen, system designers usually make a choice between a graphical user interface, or GUI, and a command line interface. A graphical user interface usually consists of 4 elements, namely windows, icons, menus, and a pointer. These elements are easily remembered, as the first letter of each spells the word WIMP.
A window is a self-contained instance of a program or a file, which can be dragged around the screen independently of other windows. An icon is a small picture that represents an action. The word print would take up more space than a picture of a printer, and would also be less useful to someone who does not speak English. Menus present the users with choices, such as save, load, and print, and can also use icons. The pointer is the arrow in the screen, controlled by the mouse, which the user can click on to drag objects, such as files and folders.
Another common component of a GUI is the dialog box. This is a separate window that allows the user to enter data for a particular purpose. This might be to enter their address, choose the color combination of an operating system, or modify the font of a word processing program.
A command line interface is much more basic. The user sees a flashing cursor on the screen, and as they type at the keyboard, the letters appear at the cursor. Normally, the user types an instruction for the computer and presses enter. Command line interfaces do not normally use a mouse, whereas on a GUI, a user might drag a file to the recycle bin to delete it. On a command line interface, they would type delete, followed by the path and the name of the file.
The main disadvantage of a command line interface is that you need to learn the commands before you can accomplish anything. GUIs use helpful icons and present users with options, making them much more intuitive and appropriate for people who are not expert computer users. For users of command line interfaces, you cannot even access the help file unless you already know the command needed to display it. But command line interfaces are far less demanding than GUIs in terms of hardware. GUIs require more RAM, a more powerful processor, and more powerful graphics capabilities. Command line interfaces are often preferred by expert users, since execution is sped up by a lack of processor-hungry graphics.
Since high-performance hardware has become cheaper, GUIs have become far more common, and more features are now available. Users can customize their systems, choosing icons and positioning them where they want them. Online tutorials are now far more widespread, since far more people have fast internet connections. Even voice command systems, such as Apple's Siri and Amazon's Echo, are becoming the norm, along with biometric interfaces, such as face and fingerprint recognition. However, new technology does not work perfectly immediately, so a second means of communication is often needed. To unlock a mobile phone, for example, you might enter your fingerprint, but there's also the option of a code or unlock pattern.
And we have two main types of interface. We have the CLI and GUI. Now, CLI stands for Command Line Interface. In this command line interface, it requires the user to type in instructions, to choose the options from the menus, or open software and so on. So here we don't have the mouse, the window, we have just to type the instructions. I have to memorize and find out what I want from my system to do. There are often number of commands that need to be typed. For example, to save or load some file, the user therefore has to learn number of commands just to carry out basic operations. Now, having to key these commands every time is let's say it is slow and difficult. Sometimes we forget how to write this command or we misspell one of these commands. So the advantages of using CLI is in direct communication with the computer. So it has, let's say, it is providing us with direct communication with the computer, which means it will be quick communication. It is not restricted to a number of predetermined options. I don't have just only these menus. I can write the functions and commands that I have in my manual. Now, the section of CLI shown in this next figure, we will see it now. It has, let's say, like this. This is CLI code. I am writing whatever I want. As you see, it is not understood for us as code, but it is understood for some professionals and experts in this field. So when I say it is complex to carry and it is not for us as basic users or non-experts. Now, GUI, which is the graphical user interface. Graphical user interface allows the user to interact with a computer like gaming devices, MP3 player, mobile phone, and so on. Now, all of these which are using some touch screens or not touch screens, but it has some windows, pointers, mouse, and graphics. It is the graphic user interface. Now, let's see here. This is Windows. This is a graphic user interface. We have to remember what are the four main features in my computer, which is the GUI interface. It is WIMP. WIMP is Windows, icons, menu, and pointing devices, which is developing the use of personal computer. Now, mouse is used to control the cursor and icons, which is selected to open and run windows. Each window contains an application, and modern computer systems allow several windows to open at the same time, which means we have multifunctionality here. Also, here is number of icons as you see on the left side. Window Manager looks after the interaction between the windows, the applications, and windowing system. Also, we have touch screens, which in our phones and tablets, the post-WIMP interaction with fingers that contact the screen and make the actions, not using the pointer as the mouse, but using your finger as pinching and rotating, which would be difficult to do using the single pointer and device such as the mouse. Because of this, we are using our fingers on these devices. Now, we want to differentiate and find out advantages and disadvantages of our two main interfaces, the CLI and GUI. You can find them here. In your book also you can find them. We have listed them before and you can read them by yourself. Here, the direct communication, the advantage of this, it is a quick interaction. User is not restricted to the options. It is possible to alter the configuration system using the CLI because I am an expert in the settings. But the disadvantages, I have to learn and remember the commands. Also, all commands need to be typed, so I can take time and also I can get some error. Now, each command must be typed using the correct format, spelling, and so on. Also, it is more difficult to edit once the command is entered. Once I press on enter on my keyboard and I have some error, I cannot re-edit, I have to retype. Now in the GUI, now we can say that the user does not need to learn the commands. I am just clicking. It is more user friendly. The icons and the windows, the pointing devices such as the mouse or your touchpad or your finger used to click on the icon to launch the application. So it is simpler than writing the application name and knowing how to run it as command. What are the disadvantages here for the GUI? It uses up more computer memory and also it is limited to the icons. It needs an operating system such as Windows to operate this user interface, which is taking or using some considerable memory. Now, who would use each of these interfaces? As you know, the CLI, the programmers, the developers, some analysts, technicians, the experts in the computer field, but the GUI, the end user who does not have to know a great knowledge of using the computers. It's like us, the basic users, students, game players, and so on. Now, by this, we have finished talking about the user interfaces. See you in the next lesson.